Dracula, a name that evokes mystery, terror, and fascination. But what really lies behind this story? Is Dracula merely a Gothic fantasy, or the shadow of a real historical figure? In this journey, we will go beyond the myth. We will visit the places connected to this legend, uncover its origins, and understand how a medieval Romanian ruler became the ultimate symbol of the vampire in global culture. This is the story of Vlad the Impaler. This is the legend, Dracula. The story begins in 1431 in the Transylvanian town of Sighișoara, where Vlad, son of Vlad Dracula, was born. His father was a member of the Order of the Dragon, a military brotherhood dedicated to defending Christianity against the Ottomans. This is where the nickname Dracula comes from, meaning son of Dracul. In his childhood, Vlad and his brother were held hostage by the Ottoman Empire to ensure their father's loyalty. There, Vlad witnessed cruelty and betrayal, lessons that would define him. When he returned to Wallachia, Vlad took the throne during turbulent times, political instability, Ottoman invasions, and betrayals among the boyars, nobles. He responded with an iron fist. His preferred method of punishment? Impalement. Not only a bloody act, but also a strategic one. It inspired fear and discouraged rebellion. It is said that one night he impaled hundreds of people and dined among them, indifferent. Others say that thieves completely disappeared from the land during his reign. Was Vlad a tyrant? Or a leader who understood that only fear could bring stability? In Western Europe, especially in the German-speaking areas, Vlad's image was distorted through pamphlets and illustrated broadsheets. In a time when printing had just been invented, stories about Vlad's cruelties spread rapidly, making him practically one of the first monsters of the media. They called him the Tyrant of Wallachia, they called him. Some pamphlets spoke of thousands impaled, mass executions, and unimaginable cruelty. The historical truth is hard to separate from propaganda. Some of these accounts were exaggerated or invented by his political rivals. But the image was clear: a bloody ruler from a mysterious land. The seed of the legend had been planted. More than 400 years later, in 1897, an Irish writer named Bram Stoker published the novel Dracula. In the book, Dracula is a Transylvanian count, immortal, living in an isolated castle, feeding on the blood of the living. Stoker never visited Romania. He studied books, letters, and maps. His sources were incomplete, sometimes even inaccurate. Was Vlad the Impaler the direct inspiration? That's debatable. In his notes, Stoker mentions the name Dracula and refers to a Wallachian voivode who fought the Turks and was feared even by the devil. However, there are more differences than similarities between Stoker's Dracula and Vlad the Impaler. Still, the name, sonorous, exotic, and full of mystery, became essential to the story's success. In 1931, the film Dracula, starring Bela Lugosi, brought the legend to the cinema screens. The image of the Count with an Eastern European accent, hypnotic gaze, and black cape became iconic. In the following decades, Dracula was reinterpreted in hundreds of films, from classic horror to parodies, animations, TV series, anime, and video games. He became more than a character, he became the archetype of the vampire. Dracula embodies mystery, eroticism, fear, and power. And in all these versions, his name remains tied to Romania, even if the details are often fictionalized. The Dracula legend has become an integral part of Romania's image worldwide, continuously attracting millions of tourists every year. Bran Castle, located in the heart of Transylvania, is often called Dracula's Castle. although there is no clear evidence that Vlad the Impaler ever lived there. The castle's Gothic atmosphere and the picturesque landscapes create the perfect backdrop for this fascinating legend. Besides Bran, other places like Poenari Fortress, Vlad's old stronghold, the city of Targoviste, where he ruled, and Sighișoara, his birthplace, are popular destinations for those wanting to delve into the mystery of the story. In Romanian villages, myths about vampires and supernatural creatures are still part of the local folklore. Stories about strigoi, spirits of the dead that return to haunt the living, and traditional rituals to keep them away add an authentic dimension to the legend. This is not just a tourist product, but a living piece of Romanian cultural heritage. Dracula-related tourism has grown in popularity, with guided tours in castles, thematic trails, and vampire festivals. These events blend history with fiction, offering visitors an immersive experience. Although some critics argue that the legend promotes a surreal image of Romania, many accept Dracula as an important cultural symbol that draws global attention to the country's historical and folkloric heritage. Thus, the myth of Dracula remains alive, between the old village tales and the spotlight of modern tourism, offering a bridge between past and present, reality and fiction. Dracula is not just a figure of horror. Behind the legend stands a real person, Vlad the Impaler, a fascinating yet controversial historical character. Over the centuries, his image has evolved dramatically, shifting between two extremes. On one hand, a defender of order and a symbol of courage. On the other, a supernatural monster, thirsty for blood. For many Romanians, Vlad is often seen as a legendary figure, but not in the Gothic sense. He is a ruler associated with absolute justice. Stories say that during his reign, there were no thieves on the roads, and people would leave valuable items at public wells without fear. This image of a severe but fair leader became part of local folklore. In many traditional tales, Vlad is portrayed as a moral force who punishes injustice and arrogance without hesitation. In one such story, he is said to have left a golden cup at a well so that anyone could drink from it, and no one dared to steal it. These anecdotes build the image of a near-mythical ruler capable of imposing a perfect balance between fear and respect. In contrast, outside Romania, the name Dracula evokes something entirely different: the eternal vampire, the creature of the night, the master of darkness. The image of the Transylvanian count with fangs and a black cloak has conquered screens, books, and the collective imagination worldwide. But this Dracula has almost nothing in common with the historical figure. It's a fictional creation built on mystery, horror, and seduction, detached from its real roots. Yet both versions, the hero and the vampire, coexist. People continue to visit sites linked to Vlad the Impaler, not only because they are intrigued by the vampire myth, but also because they are drawn to the idea of a powerful, memorable ruler surrounded by stories that defy time. In a way, each generation and culture rediscovers this figure in different ways. This duality between reality and fantasy, light and darkness, is what makes Dracula's legend so compelling. It's a story that can be told in 1,000 ways. It can be a moral tale, it can be a warning about the power of fear, or it can simply be a fascinating story about a man who once changed the world around him and who was never truly forgotten. Dracula is not just a horror story, he is a mirror. In him, we see what we choose to see: strength, fear, justice, or darkness. And it is precisely this versatility that keeps his legend alive to this day. Dracula is more than just a vampire tale. It is a legend that has crossed centuries, carrying with it the shadows of history, the echo of fear, and our fascination with the unknown. Behind the fangs and the black cloak lies something deeper, a reflection on power, death, eternity, and the eternal struggle between light and darkness. Dracula is a symbol that transforms with each generation, sometimes a monster, sometimes a martyr, and sometimes just a story whispered by firelight. And maybe that's why his legend never dies. As long as night exists, so will the desire to understand what hides in the darkness. And there, in that space between reality and myth, Dracula will be waiting, immortal, mysterious, forever alive in our imagination.